My dear child, let me tell you a story as old as time itself. A tale whispered from snowy mountains to deep green forests. A tale that has drifted from one generation to the next like a lullaby. Tonight, we will walk hand in hand into the world of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, snuggle into your blanket, close your eyes if you like, and let the magic of the story unfold. Once upon a time, in a kingdom wrapped in the glittering silence of winter, there lived a gentle queen. One cold morning, she sat by her window, sewing with delicate fingers outside. The snow fell thick and pure, covering the ground like a soft white blanket. The window frame was made of dark ebony wood, smooth and polished, and it contrasted so sharply with the falling snow that it made the queen pause as she worked. She pricked her finger with the needle, and 3 drops of bright red blood fell upon the snow on the windowsill. The queen looked at the red upon the white, and then at the black wood of the frame, and sighed with a longing in her heart. Oh, she whispered softly, almost as if speaking to the snowflakes themselves. If only I could have a child whose skin is as white as snow, whose lips are as red as blood, and whose hair is as black as the ebony wood. The snow continued to fall, as if listening, and perhaps the heavens listened too. For not long after, the queen's wish came true. She gave birth to a baby girl, the loveliest child anyone had ever seen. The little princess's skin was white as freshly fallen snow. Her lips were red as a blooming rose, and her hair shone as dark and rich as polished ebony. The queen named her Snow White, but joy and sorrow often walk together. Dear child, not long after bringing Snow White into the world, the kind queen passed away, leaving the baby in the care of her father, the king. In time, the king remarried. His new queen was beautiful, so beautiful that people often said the sun itself might dim in shame beside her. But behind her beauty hid a heart as cold as ice. She was proud, and she was vain, and above all, she could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than she. She owned a magic mirror, a tall, silver-framed glass that shimmered with enchantment. Each morning, she would stand before it and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And the mirror, bound by magic, always answered, "You, O queen, are fairest of them all." This answer pleased her, and her pride grew larger each day. But time does not stand still, little one. Snow White grew older. She grew not only in years, but in grace and beauty, until one day the mirror gave a different answer. The queen stood before her mirror, as she always did, her long gown trailing like dark shadows on the floor. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" This time, the mirror shimmered and spoke in a voice soft but clear. "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but Snow White is fairer than you." The queen's face twisted with rage. Snow White, that sweet, innocent child, the queen's heart filled with jealousy, a poison that burns hotter than fire. She summoned a huntsman, a strong and loyal man of the forest, and gave him a cruel command. "Take Snow White into the woods," she hissed, "her eyes sharp as knives. Kill her, and bring me proof that she is gone." The huntsman led Snow White deep into the forest. She skipped beside him, innocent and trusting, humming to herself as birds flew overhead. But when they reached the thickest part of the woods, he stopped. Snow White looked up at him with wide eyes. "Why do we stop here?" she asked gently. The huntsman's heart was heavy. He looked at her sweet face, her gentle smile, and he could not do what the queen had commanded. His voice shook as he said, "Run, Snow White. Run far, far into the forest and never return to the castle. The queen wishes you harm. Please, child, go and save yourself. Snow White gasped, fear rushing through her. But she saw kindness in the huntsman's eyes, and she obeyed, without another word. She ran deeper into the woods, her red cloak fluttering behind her like a flame. Snow White ran until her legs could carry her no more. She stumbled upon the snow cliff, and there stood the sweetest little cottage, with smoke curling from its chimney and flowers growing by its door. Snow White knocked softly, but no one answered. She pushed the door open and peeked inside. Everything was tiny. There were 7 little chairs, 7 little bowls, 7 little spoons, and 7 little beds lined up neatly. Oh, Snow White whispered with delight. What a lovely little home. Tired and hungry, she tasted a bit of food from each bowl, sat in each chair, and at last curled up in one of the beds. The bed was so soft, and she was so weary, that she fell fast asleep. When night fell, the owners of the cottage returned. They were not ordinary men, but 7 dwarfs miners who worked in the mountains, digging for gold and jewels. They entered their home and gasped in surprise. Who has been sitting in my chair? Said one. Who has been eating from my bowl? Cried another. Who is sleeping in my bed? Whispered the 7th, and there she was, little Snow White, sleeping peacefully, her hair spread out like a dark halo on the pillow. The dwarfs looked at her with wonder. What a lovely child, they murmured. When she awoke and told them her sad tale, their hearts melted. Stay with us, Snow White, they said kindly. Keep our house tidy, cook for us, and we will protect you. Snow White agreed, grateful for their kindness, and soon she and the dwarfs became like family. Back at the castle, the queen once again asked her mirror, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all? The mirror replied, You, my queen, are fair, it's true. But Snow White, among the 7 dwarfs, is fairer still than you. The queen's rage burned hotter than ever. She lives, the queen snarled. Then I must do this myself. She disguised herself as an old woman, her beauty hidden under rags and wrinkles. She hobbled to the dwarf's cottage, carrying a basket of combs. Pretty combs, dearie, she croaked, to make your hair shine. Snow White, innocent as ever, welcomed her. She allowed the old woman to place a comb in her hair. But oh, child, the comb was poisoned. No sooner did it touch her scalp than Snow White fell to the floor, lifeless. When the dwarfs returned, they found her and quickly pulled the comb from her hair. At once she breathed again. O Snow White, they said, please beware. Do not let strangers in, Snow White promised. But the queen was not finished. Again the queen stood before her mirror, and again it told her Snow White still lived. Furious, she hatched one final, cruel plan. This time, she disguised herself as a kindly old woman selling fruit. In her basket lay a single apple, red and shiny, but poisoned deep within. Lovely apples, sweet child, she said, offering it to Snow White. Snow White hesitated. She remembered the dwarf's warning. This one I will cut in half, the woman said. She bit one half, which was harmless, and handed Snow White the other half, which was poisoned. Trusting her eyes, Snow White took a bite. Instantly, she fell to the ground, her lips pale, her breath gone. When the dwarfs came home, they wept bitterly. This time, nothing could wake her. They built a coffin of glass, so that they could always see her face, fair and serene as though she were only sleeping. Time passed. The dwarfs never left her side. Birds sang sorrowful songs in the trees, and flowers grew round the glass coffin. One day, a prince came riding through the forest. He saw Snow White lying there, so beautiful, so pure, that he could not look away. His heart ached with love for her. Please, he begged the dwarfs, let me take her with me. I will honor her, even if she sleeps forever. The dwarfs, moved by his devotion, agreed. As the prince's men carried the coffin, they stumbled on the route. The jewel shook Snow White, and the piece of poisoned apple stuck in her throat came loose. Snow White gasped, her eyes flooding open. Life returned to her cheeks, red as roses. The prince fell to his knees. My beloved, you are awake, he cried. Snow White smiled, and in that smile was all the light of dawn. Soon after, Snow White and the prince were wed in a grand celebration. Bells rang, flowers filled the air, and joy spread through the kingdom. Even the queen was invited. Dressed in her finest, she asked her mirror one last time, Mirror, mirror of all, who is the fairest one of all? And the mirror replied, You, my queen, are fair. It's true, but Snow White, the bride, is fairer than you. The queen trembled with rage and fear. She went to the wedding and saw Snow White, radiant as the morning sun. But her cruelty had caught up with her. The prince's guards gave her a punishment. She was forced to wear shoes of iron heated in her fire, and she danced until she could dance no more. Snow White and her prince lived in love and kindness, their castle filled with laughter. The seven dwarfs were honored guests, never forgotten, and so, dear child, the tale of Snow White reminds us that true beauty is not in the mirror, but in the heart. Jealousy may destroy, but kindness, courage, and love will always light the way. And now, with the story told, let your eyes grow heavy, your breath soft and slow, and drift into dreams as sweet as Snow White's happily ever after.